myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perrio. Hello and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perrio. This week starts my first episode in a bunch of live episodes that I recorded at the Prekindle Brewery at the Arts and Hops show. It was a fantastic weekend. I was able to record a bunch of interviews while I was there, so we'll have quite a few of these. I'll try to sprinkle them in with my regular episodes that I've also recorded. We had a really great time at Prekindle Brewery. Thanks to Oscar for the audio that allowed me to project across the room. I have my own PA system now, so next time I will be more prepared. Was a great time. We had a lot of fun. This is my first interview. I was the person at the booth next to me. She was peddling her wares, as we like to call it in the biz. She's an author and her own publisher named Jacqueline Smith. She goes by Jackie. We had a great time conversation. It was a very, very fun, very off-the-cuff interviews with a lot of people. It was imagine my surprise when her name was on my list on Saturday morning, and on her list, next to her name was her fear, which happened to be sunken ships. So it was a very interesting fear. So let's get into my interview. My first live interview with author Jacqueline Smith. All right, guys, we are here at the Art and Hops Festival here at Prekindle Brewery with a lot of artists, authors, musicians. We got everything. We got tacos. We got food. Everything you need down here at Prekindle Brewery. I'm happy to be here. We're doing the Sum of All Fears podcast. We got people walking in and out, people looking at art all around. Thanks to Sarah Rose Salih, guest number 30 on my podcast, who invited me to do this with her. Check out her display. She has one of her clowns in, because we talk about her fear of clowns, and she has a clown painting in her display. So find the clown, ladies and gentlemen. So my name's Ryan Perry. I'm a comedian here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I also do this podcast where I talk about people's fears. So I'm going to be interviewing various artists and people here at the show. My first guest is actually just to my right. Her display is a bevy of books. She's taking off her mask. And
Do you want me to say something?
can y'all hear? All right. How about now?
Hello, how are y'all doing?
Can you hear?
Testing.
I can hear you. Okay. So, Jackie Smith, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I have something of a fear of public speaking, but that's not the fear that I put on the list for this. So.
Well, we can definitely have you back for more episodes where you can talk about public speaking. So I'm glad you're conquering that fear today to be my first guest. Now, you're an author, and you have a bevy of books here to my right, just stacked neatly, organized. You've done this before. Like, you have this setup for an art show.
Yep, I've been doing this, I've been published since 2013, but I've been doing shows like this probably about 6 years now. So I've got my setup down to an art.
You do. You've got flowers in vases. Like if you're not a romance novelist, you have the setup to be a romance novelist. You look like candlelight. You've got flowers. You have everything you need. You can sit down.
Okay.
I know you, in case you don't want to get too far from people coming to check out your books.
Oh, no, it's not that. I was afraid of getting tangled up in the cord.
Oh, that makes two of us. So we're both afraid of that. Like, this is my first setup, so you're my first guest. thank you for doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
So what inspired you to get into writing?
I've written for fun my entire life. And then when I was in college, I got a really bad upper respiratory infection. And I started reading a boatload of romance novels. And I don't know if it was the fever. I don't know if it was the antibiotics. But I found myself thinking, hey, I could do this. And I never looked back.
So what romance novel did you read that you feel like was like that made you feel like I can do this?
It was called True Believer by Nicholas Sparks. It had a lighthouse on the cover.
Oh, of course. Every romance has a beacon.
Yep. And I'm kind of obsessed with lighthouses. So I even took a pilgrimage after I wrote my first book to that lighthouse that was on the cover. It was Cape Hatteras in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And I took my first book and I took a picture of it next to that lighthouse.
So do you write romance, or is that just
I do.
Okay.
I throw a little bit of romance into every book. Even if it isn't the main genre, I throw a little bit of romance into all of my books just because it's fun. But I do have books that are strictly romance.
Okay. So are you inspired by like real life romance? Like, is this things that kind of happen to you? Like maybe not to that degree, but maybe like...
I can confidently say that none of my romance books have happened to me in real life. You know, I can always hope, but one of my romance books is about a young lady in love with her best friend who just happens to be a member of the world's hottest boy band. I do not know. Well, okay, that's not true. I know some boys who are musicians, and they're wonderful. But as far as Harry Styles goes, no, I've never met Harry Styles.
So is that what inspired the boy band book, was Harry Styles?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That's awesome, though. But, I mean, you can take that yourself in that situation and then write pages upon pages about how you would go in your mind, and not even to the point where you win, but obstacles that you might face. Like, okay, what are the real obstacles of me dating Harry Styles?
It's true. I literally tell people that like boy band is One Direction fan fiction, but there are some instances that like were inspired by people I know or events that happened, and a lot of it's inspired also by what you see in our culture today with social media and with all the social things that like go with
the gossip.
Yeah, with all the gossip, with all the rumors, with all the harassment sometimes that happens online. And I know this kind of just took a serious turn, but it's true. It's true. There's so many more avenues for so many kinds of interaction, both good and bad, thanks to social media nowadays.
But that's awesome. It's a fascinating idea to write about, like, fan fiction of being... Because, I mean, I will tell you that's 99% of any woman's fantasy at some point in her life was that there is a boy band that she had a thing for, like one person in the boy band, and that he would be on stage, see her in the crowd, and be like, you.
As someone who grew up in the 90s, I cannot deny this.
Everybody has it. Like, there's one of my friends, Carrie Smith, she's a comedian. She talks about, like, AJ from Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, she lives out the fantasy of being old, like, and married to AJ now, still, like, even now.
Oh, I get that. My sister and I actually went to see the Backstreet Boys before the pandemic happened. They were our last concert that we went to see. We love going to see concerts, which is probably why I write about so many bands. But, yeah, there were still ladies, like, in their 40s throwing their bras on stage at these guys.
Well, they're in their 40s, too, to be fair.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, but they've still got it. They are still amazing. They put on a great show, and they can still dance so much better than I ever will be able to.
I disagree. I feel like if you could do some training, I feel like you could do the dancing.
Maybe with a lot of training.
Oh. So what has been the book that's probably been the most challenging for you to write?
That would definitely be Trashy suspense novel, which is, okay, so you asked me if I had romance novel, right? Mm-hmm. I do, and it's literally called Trashy Romance Novel. And that's because people always told me that if I wanted to make money, I would write a trashy romance novel. So I said, challenge accepted. I'm going to do it. And I had so much fun writing it that I decided, okay, I really like suspense. I'm going to write a trashy suspense novel. They're not connected in any way except for the titles. But that one was way outside of my comfort zone because I'm a very lighthearted person. I like to think I'm funny. I mean, if you were to ask me what my favorite thing about myself is, I'd like to say that I think I'm hilarious. But since it was more of a serious, more of a, I've got to actually make this kind of chilling. I've got to make you wonder what is happening with this small town.
Mm-hmm.
Is there actually a monster running around in the woods? Is there something more sinister going on? That was a huge challenge for me, but I really ended up loving it.
Yeah, because as a comic, I get that too. Like, there's times where I push my boundaries as a comedian to, like, you know what? I'm not going to do my normal route, like, I guess what I would call routine, which is just in the same order. I'm going to shake things up and just go left turn right here. And you all of a sudden, it's inspiring because now you're flying without a net. Like, all of a sudden you have I almost a new pathway of thought and things that come to you. So it's really cool. Do publisher, like, as you're saying you're published, does your publisher, like, specify things that she wishes you would write about? Like, do they kind of direct you, like, hey, we want some more romance from you, Jackie?
I actually am my own publisher. I started up my own publishing company in 2013. My dad helped me a lot. He's the big business brain of our family, and my sister and I are the two whimsical artists. I'm the writer, she's the singer. So there are a lot of challenges when it comes to independent publishing. Like, I had to learn how to do my own covers. I had to learn formatting. Marketing is such a challenge. But it also comes with a lot of freedoms, like being able to write what I want to write, being able to set my own deadlines, and maintaining the rights to all of my own work. So I own 100% of everything that I write.
That's awesome. And that's a very great way to look at it as an artist and stuff like that, because a lot of people don't realize that when they get into it, like, how much of it you could possibly lose in just talking or getting a deal done for the money. And we have a customer here checking out your...
Hello. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And if you would like to take a bookmark or a button, they are free. And please feel free to pick up the books, browse, read through them.
Is your sister, since she's a singer, does she play a role in any of your books?
Oh, yes. She is my alpha reader. Every author has beta readers who will read the book and say, this works, this doesn't. Every author has editors who, go through, correct, say, hey, maybe you should rethink this paragraph right here. My sister is the one who goes through, reads everything, and goes, this is embarrassing, don't publish it. Or, hey, this is great, it works. But she always tells me, I don't want to be related to someone who writes crappy books, so they better be good. And I trust her to be honest with me.
Do you say that to her before she sings? Like, I don't want to be related to a sister that's going to not hit a note.
No, good
luck.
She is an incredible singer, and I've never had to worry about that. I think I'm the older sister, so I embarrass her way more than she embarrasses me.
Oh, okay. So give us an example of that.
Oh, gosh, now I'm on the spot. Let me think.
Okay, we'll come back to it.
Come back to it. I know I have a million stories, and I literally cannot think of one right now at all.
Is she a character in any of your books? Like, is she like an actor?
She's actually my cover model for Trashy Romance Novel.
Okay.
That is her on the cover.
But you've never written about her, like, as a person in your books, like as a person, like a main character or supporting.
I mean, there is a character in one of my books that has her phobia, her strange phobia, trypophobia.
Okay.
So I never say that I base any characters 100% off of me or off of someone I know, but I'll throw in tiny characteristics here and there of certain of certain people, or I feel like I pour a little bit of myself into each character. Yeah. But no, I wouldn't 100% say that any character is 100% anyone.
Okay. And that's I would say, that's a great way to do it, because that way they can't just read it and be like, bitch.
Oh,
like, how dare you? How dare you?
There was one stress dream that I once had that I wrote into one of the books, and the person who I had the stress dream about read it, and she reached out to me and was like, hey, this book is great. And I was like, ooh, I'm really glad you didn't catch that. I didn't expect her to read it.
So you mentioned your sister's fear. We're going to talk about yours, because this is what this podcast is based on.
Yep.
And so we're going to talk about your fear of sunken ships, because there's a story here. And because Dallas, Texas is not really a marine town of any kind.
Sadly.
So I feel like sunken ships has got to come from somewhere. So Tell me about being afraid of sunken ships.
I truly don't know where it comes from. All I know is that Titanic came out when I was 10 years old, and my mom wanted to watch it, so naturally she rented it from Blockbuster. She sat me down with her, and the opening scene where they're down there with that shipwreck, I can't even describe how it made me feel. I was terrified. The room just got really quiet, y'all. Keep talking.
Yeah, because everybody wants to hear more about the fact that you're afraid. The world just stopped when you said, I'm afraid of sunken ships.
I am, and it's sort of a claustrophobia. That's the only way I can really describe it, is I feel trapped down there with the shipwreck. And I've actually Googled it, which is hard to do. So it has a name. It's called submechanophobia, which is basically, anything that is man-made submerged. But for me, it's strictly actually, I guess that's not true. I mean, submarines kind of freak me out. I don't think I could ever ride in a submarine, but it's just like if there's an airplane down there or a car or a shipwreck, I just can't look at it. It makes it hard to breathe. It's the weirdest experience, and I can't explain it at all. But the weird part is my uncle has the same fear. I didn't know this.
So it's hereditary.
Apparently. I don't know. Maybe we both died on the Titanic in a previous life. Who knows?
But I get that too. It's a helpless feeling. It's a feeling of you're powerless because you're in the middle of the ocean. Even if you are able to not be trapped in the boat, you're still miles from everybody. And
the thing is, I love to swim. I love sea life. I love marine mammals. I want to live by the beach. I want to learn to snorkel. I mean, I love the ocean. It's just seeing those wrecks that are supposed to be floating or flying. It's the weirdest feeling.
Okay. So how does that affect you on cruises?
I've never been on a cruise, but I have been on dolphin watching cruises, and I love them. They're fun, and I feel like, I'm not afraid of being on a ship that is actively sinking, because I feel like I can swim. I'll be fine.
Okay.
Or there are lifeboats. I'll be fine. It's the idea of being trapped down there with it. I'll see them in my nightmares. It's terrifying.
It's amazing you've had nightmares of sinking.
Oh, not sinking. No, just seeing.
Undersea.
One of the weirdest dreams I have, I'll be walking through a hall and there will be these glass walls, and I'll look out the glass wall and it turns out we're at the bottom of the ocean and there's the Titanic right there. Oh my gosh, the most terrifying. I force myself to wake up when I have those dreams.
So you have dreamed of seeing being down with the Titanic.
Oh, yeah.
On a tour, which I could see totally as somebody doing. I could see somebody making an underwater tour where they could make an undersea tunnel where you could walk.
You could not pay me enough.
So do you think it's just being submerged? If you were in a pool and somebody pushed your head down?
Oh, I grew
sharks
up,
and minnows.
I grew up with a pool. I don't mind being underwater. I love it. That's what's so weird. I love being underwater. I feel like I missed my calling and should have been a professional mermaid. I love it, but it's
Is
just
that your next novel?
Oh, please! I do have an ocean-themed novel. What's funny is I'm working on a young adult novel right now, and I actually haven't publicly announced the name yet, but it's called Shipwreck Girl, and that's based on a song in the book. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what I'm doing because I won't be able to Google my own book. Because the first thing that's going to pop up is a creepy shipwreck.
The Titanic movie.
Oh man, and that's what I tell people. It's actually a combination of Titanic and the song "Skater Boy" by Avril Lavigne.
You could say that, or maybe Castaway Girl, or
yeah. I don't know. It's the weirdest phobia. I can't explain it. I'll go to my sister and I have been to the Titanic Artifacts Museum in Las Vegas.
For someone that's afraid of this, you have done a lot of.
Well, that's because I find it fascinating. I love Titanic. It's my favorite movie. I just can't watch the underwater parts. But so my sister and I, we went to the Artifacts Museum, and the first couple rooms, they're not anything scary, but you get to that last section of it, and it is just all about the wreck. I had to close my eyes. My sister took my hand and led me through that room because I couldn't even look. I could still see it out of my peripheral vision.
So, what about scuba?
Heck no. No. You will not get me into. I would love to go snorkeling, not too deep.
Okay.
Where the water is still very clear, but I feel like scuba diving, I'd feel confined. A lot of scuba involves, diving shipwrecks, and even the training involves going out into open water, and I'm just.
I feel you could write a romance novel about scuba and just literally paint your dream man, pulling you like helping you conquer your fear.
Oh, I don't. I see. I watched this movie.
Okay.
And it was called, what was it? It was like a Lifetime movie. It was based on an actual murder, too, where a man and a woman got married. He had her up her life insurance, like, I don't know how much. Then they went to Australia. He forced her to go scuba diving when she said she didn't want to, and she drowned. So, and that was a true story. It was
Fool
like
me once,
Deadly
lifetime.
Honeymoon or something. So no, I know you tried, but all I'm gonna
It didn't have to get that far, but I just was like, what a great, because you've done so much research on it. I was like, what a great novel or at least novel idea that.
I would not trust any man who tried to force me to go scuba diving.
He's not forcing you. He is opening his heart and his scuba gear to you. He's just trying to bring down those walls.
If he wants to take me snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, then yes, that is true love. If he wants to force me to go scuba diving, like around a shipwreck,
So how far underwater can you get before the panic sets in? Is it just the idea that you're not in control of going back up, or? So
I can actually make it pretty deep. I was actually a waterfront lifeguard for 3 summers, and I could make it down to like 15 feet, but then my ears started to hurt because I don't know how to relieve the pressure.
Yeah, I'm used to be able to go deep underwater, and I'm like, okay, this is not for me.
Well, see, I feel like if I wasn't I feel like in the scuba gear that would feel restrictive and that would freak me out. If I'm just in a normal bathing suit, and I don't mind deep water as long as it's clear. But if you say you're Finding Nemo, though, you take me out to the drop off, I'm not going any farther.
Okay, so you're not going past the reef.
No,
like Nemo.
I'm staying with Marlin.
Okay, good call. So what about dark water? Like, are you afraid of dark water?
Oh,
too?
I'm not here for dark water. Nope. Not a
so
fan.
no night swimming, no.
Actually, okay, I love night swimming. Again, if it's shallow and if there's plenty of light illuminating the water, I like that. But like Free Willy is one of my favorite movies, right? But it freaks me out when it's nighttime, he's in there, and Keiko comes swimming up, and it's all dark. That freaks me out.
Okay. I like that you have, for someone who's afraid of underwater stuff, you have so much nautical that you like. Like, it's
well, and that's the thing. I'm not like it's a love fear thing, because I love whales. I love dolphins. They're my favorite animals in the world. I dream about snorkeling at the Great Barrier Reef, and I love The Little Mermaid. I love H2O, just out of water. I love the ocean. It's just when you get those shipwrecks and it gets dark and deep, that not here for it.
Okay.
I'm a lot of contradictions.
Yes, you are. That's part of being a romance. That's what makes you a great novelist, is that you can actually be a contradiction, because you have to be able to write. Otherwise, what are you writing if there's no I would say, I can't think of the word, suspense. True. Or conflict. That's the word I'm looking for. You have to have a conflict, and if you can't take both sides of it, then you're only writing one half of a book.
I like to think I'm a well-rounded character.
Okay. You definitely, again, you have, how many different books have you published at this point?
13. 14 if you count a book of poetry that my friend wrote and that I contributed photography to. Okay. So that's 14.
I noticed you mentioned earlier you're not a poetry writer per se.
Oh, I can't write poetry. No.
What do you feel like keeps you from writing poetry?
I think there's a lot of pressure. With prose, it's easy because I'll just write the way that people talk, and I like to listen. I love dialogue. I love listening to people talk. I love, how you can pick up a personality through dialogue. But with poetry, you have to suspend the casual. I'm trying to figure out how to. Now my fear of public speaking is coming in because I don't know how to phrase this.
Take your time.
I don't know. There don't seem to be very many rules with prose, and I feel like there are a lot of rules with poetry. Okay. That if you want to make it good, you've got to follow.
I'm not sure anybody, poetry fans out here, agree, disagree. Keem doesn't know. Keem's a comic from...
Oh, hello.
But yeah, I mean, that's I can definitely see that, because I feel like, for me, poetry is a moment. Mm-hmm. With prose, like you said, you can come back to it. I can... I have a whole paragraph. I can come back to this description in poetry, you've got to get it within like lines.
Exactly. And I know a lot of writers, myself included, have a lot of trouble with like blurbs or with the synopses on the backs of books. And I think it's because we're all just like used to writing thousands and thousands of words. Like we're used to being able to be as wordy as we like, and then to try and fit an 80,000 word novel into 100 words on the back. It's so hard. And that's the same with poetry. It's like, okay, I've got to convey what I want to with a limited amount of words. And I know not all poetry is like that. I know there are several different kinds of poetry, and there is some that is, just free verse and no rules. But then, I took a poetry class in grad school, and I'm thinking of all the different kinds of poetry I learned, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, Jacqueline, I appreciate you doing this. For someone who's afraid of public speaking, there has been no real pause or any kind of where you pushed on through, like no problem whatsoever.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find you on social media who may not be here in person but do want to check out your books and everything else?
You can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and unfortunately all of my handles are different for every single social media that I have. But if you go to my website, which is windtrailpublishing.com, you can find all of my social medias there.
So what inspired you to come up with that publishing company name?
I like to hike, and I like wind. So I thought...
You like wind? Okay.
I do. I like the wind. So I thought, that sounds free and kind of bohemian, so I'll take that.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Check out Jacqueline Smith and all her wonderful books. Thanks again. Round of applause, everybody that is here.
Thank you so much.
So that was Jacqueline. That was an amazing start to a live show. To have that specific of a fear and have done that much research on it. I felt like I was the guest almost. Like she was just giving me all this information on her fear of sunken ships and the wreckage. And it was such a fascinating conversation. Thanks again to Jacqueline. I think you did a great job as the first guest so that other people that were there understood what the process was. And so you did a great job. It's a fantastic interview. Couldn't ask for a better live interview than that. And it was amazing. Thanks again to Sarah Salih, guest from episode 30 with her fear of clowns, for inviting me to be on such a show, and for Oscar Nash, again, for providing the loudspeaker that I could speak into while also recording my podcast so that people around us could hear what was going on. It was a real fun time. Again, I'm more prepared. I went to Guitar Center over Memorial Day weekend and got me a PA system so that I can set up my sound without having to interfere with somebody else's time. It was very polite and gracious. His episode will be coming up in the coming weeks as well, probably sometime in July. Thanks to Travis Wright for also providing me guidance, and I'm a fan of pod. I did an interview with him, I believe, last Sunday, which turned out to be an amazing time. We had a great 3-hour conversation. Probably not all going to be on the podcast, but the majority of it will. So check out I'm a Fan Of. I was also on the Basement Manifesto not too long ago. Check out their podcast. We record that live at Hyenas in Fort Worth every Thursday. Guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. It's been a great time. I'm very excited. I've got a bunch of live interviews. I got some regular interviews, so I might try to do 2 live, then 1 regular as a formula going forward till I get all the live ones out. Unless I record another live one in a month or 2, in which case then we'll just keep sprinkling them in that formula. Thanks again to Jacqueline Smith and to everyone. If you like what you hear, follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. The more reviews I have, the more I guess, move up in the rankings. I don't know what ranking I should even be in. And so that's how professional this podcast is ran. Other than that, I've got some shows coming up in June here. In a couple weeks, I'll be featuring for Matt Sadler, which will be a great weekend in Fort Worth with episode 31 guest Zach Arredondo hosting. Also, I will be headlining Hyenas in Fort Worth at the beginning of July. So come check that out. I'll be headlining in Hyenas, Dallas, July 1st. Also, that next weekend, I'll be in Little Rock, Arkansas, featuring for the very funny Andy Woodhull. And then later on in July, I'll be featuring for Kevin Bozeman in Tulsa. And at the beginning of August, I'll be with Jake Johan in Wichita. So come out. If you're out of the state of Texas, I'd love to meet you. I'd love to hang out, and maybe we'll record some podcasts while I'm out on the road. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's GUNBUNS, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans @gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback. If on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perrio. It's RyanPerrio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperrio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened. And everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.